When a man discovered the body of a German Shepherd puppy floating in a remote mountain lake, he rushed to help. But what happened next was so shocking, so terrifying, it would haunt him forever. This is the story that will challenge everything you think you know about darkness hiding in peaceful places. The morning mist hung low over Crystal Lake as 45-year-old wildlife photographer Michael Harrison adjusted his camera tripod, preparing for what he thought would be a peaceful sunrise shoot. Nestled deep in the Adirondack Mountains of upstate New York, the lake had been his sanctuary for over a decade, pristine, undisturbed, and teeming with wildlife at dawn. Michael had arrived at 5:30 a.m., expecting the familiar solitude that made this place perfect for his work. As a professional with over 20 years of experience, he'd trained himself to detect the smallest anomalies in a natural landscape. But nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to find near the eastern shore. Through his telephoto lens, he spotted something floating, dark, small, motionless, about 50 yards away. At first he assumed it was debris, maybe a branch from the storm the night before. But as he fine-tuned his focus and the morning light intensified, the truth came into horrifying clarity. It was the body of a German Shepherd puppy, probably no older than 8 weeks, drifting lifelessly in the cold water. The tiny black and tan form floated gently, unmoving, a tragic contrast to the serene wilderness surrounding it. "Jesus Christ," Michael whispered, lowering his camera, the weight of the discovery crashing into him. Death was no stranger to Michael. He had documented nature's brutal cycle many times: predators and prey, disease, survival. But this wasn't natural. This wasn't part of the wild order. This was wrong. A domestic puppy, alone and dead in a remote mountain lake? It made no sense. Where was its mother, its littermates? How had it ended up in such an isolated place, miles from the nearest road or home? Michael's instincts kicked in. He had to document the scene. This could be evidence of abandonment, or something far worse. But as he lifted his camera again, a detail made his blood run cold. There were no signs of struggle, no disturbed mud, no broken plants along the bank, nothing to suggest the puppy had wandered into the water by accident. Everything pointed to one chilling conclusion: someone had brought it here, on purpose. And the implications of that sent a sharp chill through his body. Just as he began photographing, movement in the woods caught his eye, something stirring between the trees. The realization hit him like a punch. He might not be alone. A shiver crept up his spine that had nothing to do with the cool mountain air. But it wasn't over. Not even close. Michael's hands trembled as he lowered his camera. Every instinct screamed at him to get out now, but the image of that small, helpless body drifting in silence tore at his conscience. He couldn't leave it there. "I have to get him out," he muttered. He scanned the marshy edge of the lake. Treacherous terrain, mud, hidden rocks, sudden drop-offs. He knew the dangers. He'd photographed more than one rescue mission here, but this time it was personal. Carefully, Michael stepped into the icy water. His boots squelched in the mud as he moved deeper. By the time he was waist-deep, he was shivering uncontrollably. As he neared the puppy, he saw more clearly. It was heartbreakingly young, maybe 6 to 8 weeks. No obvious injuries, no trauma, just a small, limp body. "Who could do this to you, little guy?" he whispered. Then he reached out, and everything changed. The lifeless form suddenly convulsed. The puppy's eyes flew open, bright, terrified amber eyes, not clouded by death, but burning with life. He was alive, barely, hypothermic, weak, but clinging to life. "Oh my God. You're alive?" Michael gasped, pulling the soaked puppy to his chest. "Who did this to you?" As he turned to head back to shore, he froze. Someone was watching. A figure stood at the edge of the trees, half concealed in shadow, still, silent, staring. Michael couldn't tell if it was a man or woman. They didn't move, didn't speak, just watched. It didn't feel like a coincidence. Whoever left the puppy here was still there, and now they were watching him. Michael held the trembling puppy closer and began wading back, the lake bed slick beneath his feet. The puppy's body was shaking violently, its eyes locked on Michael's face as if begging him not to let go. The figure hadn't moved, but as Michael got closer, he saw more, a tall, lean man, dressed in dark clothing, motionless like a predator. "Help me!" Michael shouted, trying to keep his voice calm. "This puppy needs help. He's freezing." The man stepped forward, slowly, deliberately. When he spoke, his voice was cold, cultured, emotionless. "You weren't supposed to find him this quickly," the man said, as if commenting on the weather. "I calculated at least another hour before hypothermia took him. You've disrupted a very carefully timed experiment." Michael's blood turned to ice. This wasn't just cruelty, it was deliberate torture, a scientific experiment, a test. "You're insane," Michael breathed, tightening his grip on the puppy. "He's just a baby. How could you do this?" The man smiled. It was the most terrifying thing Michael had ever seen. "Innocent," he repeated. "There's no such thing. There are only subjects and observers. And you've just promoted yourself from observer to subject." Michael staggered back. The puppy whimpered, its tiny body trembling harder now. This wasn't random. This was a trap. The man continued, calm and casual. "I needed someone with rescue instincts. Someone who'd act without hesitation. Someone who'd value a creature's life more than their own. Congratulations, Mr. Harrison. You've provided exactly the behavioral data I was looking for." Michael froze. He knew his name. This had all been planned. He had been watched, studied, targeted. The puppy wasn't the first victim. Michael wouldn't be the last. And now the real horror was just beginning. "You have no idea," the man said softly, "what Crystal Lake is hiding." Hypothermia had already set in, even as Michael tried desperately to warm the tiny German Shepherd puppy with his own body heat. But the man watching him only smiled, a wide, knowing smile that twisted with cruelty and pleasure. "I know everything about you, Michael Harrison," the man said. "You're 45 years old, divorced, no children. You live alone in a cabin 12 miles from here. You come to this lake every Tuesday and Friday morning to photograph wildlife. You have a particular fondness for rescue animals. You've donated over $30,000 to animal shelters in the past 5 years. The details hit Michael like ice water down his spine. This wasn't random. This wasn't a crime of opportunity. He'd been watched, stalked, studied, and selected. "For how long?" Michael asked, trying to back slowly toward his photography equipment, projecting a calm he didn't feel. The man answered casually, like he was talking about a hobby. 6 months. "I needed to establish behavioral patterns, identify psychological triggers, and develop the most effective methodology for my research. You presented the perfect subject profile, isolated, predictable, and with a compulsive need to rescue suffering animals." Michael's mind raced. Research? What kind of research involved torturing innocent animals? The man's expression shifted. His voice took on the eerie cadence of academic enthusiasm. "I'm studying the neurological and psychological responses to moral dilemmas under extreme stress. How far will someone go to save a life when their own life is in danger? What happens to decision-making when survival instincts clash with moral imperatives?" The puppy whimpered weakly in Michael's arms. Its tiny body was colder now, slipping closer to death. And the man standing in front of him, this monster, saw it all as nothing more than data for a twisted experiment. "This puppy isn't your first victim, is it?" Michael asked, already knowing the answer. "Of course not," the man replied matter-of-factly. "I've conducted 17 previous experiments using various animal subjects and different human targets. The data has been fascinating, though most subjects failed to provide useful information, emotional breakdown, or premature termination." Michael's stomach turned. This wasn't just a killer. This was a predator of both animals and humans, luring people with cruelty, baiting them with helplessness, and then breaking them down. The puppy had been chosen on purpose, not just because it was vulnerable, but because it would activate Michael's deepest instincts to save. "What happened to the other people?" Michael asked, dreading the answer. The man smiled again. The previous subjects provided valuable data before their experiments concluded. But you, Michael, your psychological profile suggests you might survive long enough to provide truly comprehensive results. Michael scanned the surroundings. His gear, including his backpack, emergency supplies, and satellite phone, was 20 feet away. The man stood between him and his only path back to safety. The puppy was trembling less now, a sign that hypothermia was nearing its final, most lethal stages. Michael had maybe 10 minutes left before the innocent creature in his arms was lost forever. "Here's your first moral dilemma," the man said. He pulled something from his pocket, a cattle prod. "You can run, try to save yourself, but the puppy will die while you're escaping, or you can stay. Try to save him, and I'll use that time to incapacitate you both." Michael's photographer's eye caught subtle details. The man's posture suggested he wasn't armed with anything else. His position implied he expected Michael to run toward the parking area, but there was a small boat dock on the far side of the lake. Another route, another chance. "You're giving me a choice," Michael said slowly, "because it's part of the experiment. You want to see what I'll do, my life or the puppy's." "Precisely," the man nodded. "Previous subjects?" 94% chose self-preservation. But you might be in the 6% who choose differently. Michael didn't hesitate. He charged, not away from the man, but straight at him. Shielding the puppy in his arms, he barreled forward. The man hadn't expected it. Michael's shoulder hit him square in the midsection, sending them both crashing into the icy shallows. The cattle prod flew from the man's grip and vanished into the lake. "You're ruining the experiment," the man snarled, his calm finally shattering as he struggled in the slippery mud. Michael didn't answer. He was already up, running. The puppy pressed tight against his chest. Every second counted. His satellite phone could summon help. His first aid kit might stabilize the puppy, and his deep knowledge of these woods might just give them the edge they needed. But behind him, he heard the slosh of water. The man was coming. The fight for survival had only just begun. Cut to resolution. Calm, reflective tone. Michael Harrison's terrifying encounter at Crystal Lake triggered one of the most intense manhunts in New York State history. The puppy, who Michael later named Survivor, was treated for severe hypothermia and made a full recovery. Today he serves as a certified therapy dog for trauma victims. But what the investigation revealed was even more shocking. The man was identified as Dr. Edmund Pierce, a disgraced psychology professor, dismissed years ago for unethical research. He had vanished into the Adirondack wilderness and left behind a trail of horror. 12 confirmed victims, meticulous notes, chilling experiment logs, and a cabin filled with evidence that linked him to dozens of missing persons cases. Michael's quick thinking and his refusal to abandon an innocent life did more than save a puppy. It stopped a killer. His camera, abandoned in the chaos, held the only photographic evidence of the killer's face, photos that proved vital during the trial. Dr. Pierce was sentenced to life in prison without parole, where he is now studied by criminal psychologists trying to understand how a man could dehumanize others so completely. Closing reflection, emotional uplift. Michael has never returned to Crystal Lake, but he continues his wildlife photography, and together with Survivor, he now advocates for animal welfare and missing person awareness. Their story is shared in schools, shelters, and survivor support groups. A reminder that animal cruelty is often a warning sign, and that reporting suspicious behavior can save lives, both animal and human. Survivor's recovery was miraculous. His gentle presence brings peace to those who've endured trauma. He is living proof that healing is possible, that even the smallest life, when saved, can change the course of history. If this story touched you, please share it with someone who cares about animals. Support organizations fighting animal cruelty. Trust your instincts, especially in isolated places, because the battles we fight for those who cannot fight for themselves are often the ones that define who we truly are. If this tale moved you, if you felt the tension, the heartbreak, and the triumph, please support our channel by hitting the like button and subscribing. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring more thrilling, emotional, and inspiring stories your way. Leave a comment below and let us know what you think. Do you believe dogs have an extraordinary sixth sense? Share your thoughts and personal stories with us. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.